everyone, welcome to SJ's classes. Thank you so much for joining me once again here on this platform. Today it's a poem that we are going to discuss, and the poem is Annabel Lee, written by the famous American poet Edgar Allan Poe. And before we move into the poem, it's important that we understand this poet. Therefore, let me give you a very brief introduction to this American poet, Edgar Allan Poe. Edgar Allan Poe was one of the most important and influential American writers of the 19th century. He was not popular as a poet alone, but he was also popular as a short story writer, critic, and also an editor. He was born in Boston in 1809, and as far as American literature is concerned, Poe is widely regarded as a central figure of Romanticism in the United States and of American literature as a whole. And he was one of the country's earliest practitioners of the short story. His first collection of poems, Tamerlane and Other Poems, was published in 1827. In 1829, he published a second collection which was titled Al-Araf, Tamerlane and Minor Poems. But neither volume received significant critical or public attention. Then Poe began to sell short stories to magazines, and it's around this time, which is in 1835, that he became the editor of the Southern Literary Messenger, which is a magazine. And over the next 10 years, Poe edited a number of literary journals, including some of the renowned journals like Burton's Gentleman's Magazine and also Graham's Magazine in Philadelphia and the Broadway Journal in New York City. So that is why I earlier said that he was not just a poet but also an editor. He also sold short stories that makes him a short story writer, and he was the country's earliest practitioners of short stories. And it was during these years when he edited a number of magazines that he established himself as a poet, a short story writer, and an editor. During these years, he published some of his best known stories and poems, including The Fall of the House of Usher, The Telltale Heart, The Murders in the Rue Morgue, and The Raven. The Raven is by far the most popular work that he has ever written. And Raven was published in 1845, and this became an immediate success. This took him to an instant success. He planned for years to produce his own journal titled The Pen, later renamed The Stylus. But before it could be produced, he died in Baltimore on October 7, 1849. The cause of his death is still unknown, it's a mystery, and it has been variously attributed to things like disease, alcoholism, substance abuse, suicide, and other causes. So it still remains a mystery. There are different ideas, different points of views regarding his death, but it still remains a mystery. Now, his poetry is something which is very much musical. It follows a rhythmic pattern and it's filled with rhyme. And that is probably why Ralph Waldo Emerson dubbed Poe as the Jingle Man. That is what Waldo Emerson called Edgar Allan Poe, the Jingle Man. And Poe's work as an editor, a poet, and a critic had a profound impact on American and international literature. It is his work, The Murders in the Rue Morgue, that invented the modern detective story. And this particular concept of detective reasoning, which he called ratiocination, that is a term that he adapted to describe his way of deductive reasoning. And this ratiocination, it has inspired countless authors, including famous authors like Sir A.C. Doyle, who created Sherlock Holmes. So that is a kind of impact this writer, this poet had on the later generations. And he is said to have even pioneered the modern detective stories. So that is all about the poet. Now let me also give you a short introduction to the poem that we are about to learn. This is the last poem that Edgar Allan Poe composed. It was written in 1849 and was published the same year, but just 2 days after Poe's death on October 7th. It first appeared in two newspapers, which are the Richmond Examiner and the New York Tribune, and then in the 1850 edition of The Works of the Late Edgar Allan Poe. It was published along with this particular collection. And since its publication in October 1849, the poem has grown in popularity and is now one of the best loved works of Poe. So, apart from The Raven, which was written by Poe, the second most popular work written by him is the poem that we are about to learn, Annabel Lee. This poem is thought to be written in memory of his young wife, Virginia, who died in 1847. The poem expresses one of Poe's recurrent themes, which is the death of a young, beautiful, and dearly beloved woman. And this is a theme that he has frequented in many of his works, in his poems like The Raven, Ulalume, and To the One in Paradise. In these poems as well, he has employed this particular theme, the death of a young, beautiful, and dearly beloved woman. Poe addressed this particular topic as the most poetical topic in the world. This particular topic, which is the death of a young, beautiful, and dearly beloved woman. Poe regarded it as the most poetical topic in the world. The poem is narrated by Annabel Lee's lover, who forcefully fights against people as well as supernatural beings who try to get in the way of their love. The narrator and Annabel Lee are very happy and very much in love. Their love for each other is so intense, in fact, that seraphs in heaven, which means who are angels in heaven, they become jealous of this couple, the love that they share, and they murder Annabel Lee. And how do they murder her? By sending a wind that chills her to death. The narrator, who is Annabel Lee's lover, he is devastated by this episode, by this event, but he does not give up on their love. He believes that his soul is inseparable from Annabel Lee, and every night he dreams of her and sleeps next to her too. And to tell you something about the overall form of the poem, this poem has six stanzas, out of which three stanzas have got 6 lines. There is a particular stanza with 7 lines, and there are two stanzas with 8 lines. We have slightly different rhyme pattern in each stanzas. So that is regarding the overall form of the poem. Now let's discuss the poem. Let's start reading the poem. It was many and many a year ago, in a kingdom by the sea, that a maiden there lived whom you may know by the name of Annabel Lee. So at the very outset, the poet, the speaker of the poem, now conveys the time, place, and the protagonist of this particular narrative. It was many and many a year ago. There you have the time being narrated. In a kingdom by the sea. So you have the setting, the place of action. And who is the narrator going to talk about? A maiden. A maiden who lived in the kingdom by the sea many year ago. And the maiden's name is Annabel Lee. This she is the protagonist or central character of this poem. Who is a maiden? A maiden is a young unmarried girl. And this maiden, she lived with no other thought than to love and be loved by me. So look at how the narrator introduces this girl to us. He says that she lived her life with no other thoughts than love between them. So this is the singleton thought that she had, the love that they shared, the love that the narrator, Annabel Lee's lover, had for her. She wanted to love him, and she always thought about the love he shared to her. I was a child and she was a child in this kingdom by the sea. So it is their childhood that the poet recollects and narrates to us. But we loved with a love that was more than love. So the love that they shared then during their childhood was something more than love. I and my Annabel Lee, with a love that the winged seraphs of heaven coveted her and me. So they loved each other with a love which was something more than love, and this made the seraphs of heaven. Seraphs means angels. The angels of heaven covet them. Covet both Annabel Lee and her lover. Covet means to envy, to greatly desire for, to feel jealous about. So their love was so strong, their love was something more than love that even angels in heaven could not, take away their or stop envying them, becoming jealous of them. And this was the reason that long ago in this kingdom by the sea, a wind blew out of a cloud, chilling my beautiful Annabel Lee. And this was the reason. So the narrator tells us that this is the reason why angels sent a wind that chilled my Annabel Lee. And this is the reason why Annabel Lee meets with her end, with her death. So the narrator believes that Annabel Lee's lover believes that it is angels who were so envious of the love that we shared who sent this wind from heaven that caused her death. My beautiful Annabel Lee, so that her high-born kinsman came and bore her away from me to shut her up in a sepulchre in this kingdom by the sea. So that is what happened later on. So when she fell sick, her kinsman came. Her high-born kinsman means possibly her folks, or kins or family members. So her family members, they come and they take her away and they shut her up in the sepulchre. Sepulchre is a chamber that is used as a grave, which means Annabel Lee has passed away. And the narrator is alone and he again goes back to thinking about the reason behind her death. The angels, not half so happy in heaven, went envying her and me. So, again, in this stanza as well, the poet reiterates the reason behind the death of Annabel Lee. The angels, not half so happy in heaven. The speaker says that the angels were unhappy in heaven. Why were they unhappy? Because they could not, stand the love that they felt so much jealous about the love that Annabel Lee and her lover shared that they could not stand it. So they became unhappy even in heaven. The angels, not half so happy in heaven, went envying her and me. Yes, that was the reason, as all men know in this kingdom by the sea, that the wind came out of the cloud by night, chilling and killing my Annabel Lee. So the speaker believes that the angels who were unhappy in heaven and who were so envious about their love caused the wind that chilled and killed Annabel Lee. But our love, it was stronger by far than the love of those who were older than we, of many far wiser than we. So in this stanza, the narrator, the speaker, talks about the love that they shared. Earlier, he said that the lover, he said that they loved with a love that was more than love. In this stanza, the speaker says that their love was stronger than the love that was shared by people who were older and wiser than them. But our love, it was stronger by far than the love of those who were older than we, of many far wiser than we. And neither the angels in heaven above, nor the demons down under the sea, can ever dissever my soul from the soul of the beautiful Annabel Lee. So look at the kind of the extent to which the poet, the narrator takes it. He says that neither good nor evil forces can separate her soul from mine. So neither the angels in heaven above nor the demons down under the sea can ever dissever. Dissever means separate. Separate my soul from the soul of the beautiful Annabel Lee. So that is the kind of bond that they share. That is the kind of connection that they have between each other. So he says that neither good things or no evil spirits cannot dissever, cannot separate my soul from the soul of Annabel Lee. For the moon never beams without bringing me dreams of the beautiful Annabel Lee. And the stars never rise, but I feel the bright eyes of the beautiful Annabel Lee. So the speaker sees her eyes in the stars above, and the moon, which means the night time, it brings her memories in the form of dreams. So every now and then, the poet, thinks about Annabel Lee, her memories. He still cherishes them. And so all the night tide I lie down by the side of my darling, my life and my bride, in her sepulchre there by the sea, in her tomb by the sounding sea. So this is how he concludes the stanza. He says that every night the speaker, the narrator, lies down alongside Annabel Lee, whom he calls as his life, his darling, his life and his bride. And what the narrator does is he sleeps alongside Annabel Lee near her tomb with the sound of the sea coming from nearby. So that is how the narrator spends time now or after the death of Annabel Lee. That is how he concludes the poem. So it's definitely a tragic story being narrated by the speaker. The speaker must obviously be Edgar Allan Poe himself, and Annabel Lee must be his wife Virginia, who died shortly before he wrote this poem. Um, Poe says that the love that they had, the love Poe had for Virginia, it was something which is eternal and pure, but it was short lived. It did not last for long, but they shared a love which was too powerful to be defeated. So on the whole, you can say that the poem discusses portrays themes like love, mortality, family, the supernatural beings, etc. Now, if you ask me if this poem can be called as an elegy, it's not a typical elegy because elegy is it's a poem that laments the death of a person. And until Thomas Gray wrote Elegy Written in a Country Churchyard, it was more or less like a poem that lamented the death of a dear one. But once Thomas Gray wrote Elegy Written in a Country Churchyard, the whole idea behind elegy changed. It became a meditation, a poem that meditates on something which is inevitable, and that inevitable element is called death. That is described as the as an inevitable hour by Thomas Gray in his elegy. So there is a lot of positive elements that are there in this particular poem, and it's not purely about death. The narrator, the speaker, talks about how or what led to the death of his beloved named Annabel Lee. So I wouldn't say that this is a typical elegy. Um, you can call this a ballad if you want, but it's not a full-fledged ballad as such. But you have a narrator and you have repetition of certain lines like "In this kingdom by the sea," which gives a musical quality, a rhythmic element, which includes a rhythmic element into this particular poem. So it can be treated as a sort of ballad, but not a full-fledged ballad. It's a lyric as well because the poet he conveys his emotions through this particular work. The emotion is obviously love, the love which he shared with his wife Virginia. So that is all for the day. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you have understood the poet as well as the poem.